Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell, because today we are taking a closer look at a small South African coin that many people may have ignored for years. It is the 5-cent coin dated 2007, and if you have one sitting inside an old collection, a box of coins, or even a forgotten drawer, you may want to take a second look before spending it. At first glance, the 2007 South African 5-cent coin does not look like something extraordinary. It is small, familiar, and was made for everyday circulation. But coin collecting has taught us an important lesson: never judge a coin only by its face value. The real interest can come from its condition, production details, unusual examples, and the story behind the coin. The 2007 5 cents belongs to a fascinating period in modern South African coinage. The coin is copper-plated steel, weighs around 4.5 grams, and measures about 21 millimeters across. Its design features the South African national arms on one side, while the other side features the famous blue crane along with the 5C denomination. There is also something particularly interesting about the design. The coin reflects South Africa's multilingual identity, with the country's official languages represented across the coin series of this period. That makes these pieces more than simple spending money. For collectors, they can represent a snapshot of South Africa during the early years of the 21st century. Now here is where things become interesting. More than 653 million examples of the 2007 circulation issue were produced, meaning an ordinary circulated example is not generally considered rare. Current catalog estimates for circulated pieces are typically only a small amount above face value, while a very well-preserved example can be worth more to collectors. Nemista, for example, currently lists indicative values ranging from roughly 17 cents in lower grades to about 49 cents for an uncirculated example, while emphasizing that these figures are estimates rather than guaranteed selling prices. So why would collectors still care about this coin? Because condition can completely change the conversation. Imagine finding a 2007 5 cents that has spent years protected from scratches, moisture, fingerprints, and heavy circulation. The original details may still be sharp. The surfaces may look clean. The lettering may remain crisp, and the design may have very little wear. That kind of example can attract considerably more attention than a heavily worn coin. And there is another category that collectors should not overlook: proof examples. Records show a very small proof production of only 1,280 pieces for 2007. These specially produced coins were not intended to circulate in the same way as ordinary examples, making them much more interesting to collectors when correctly identified. This is why you should never assume that every 2007 5 cents coin is identical. Before you decide what your coin is worth, examine it carefully under good lighting. Look at the date first. Then inspect the national arms, lettering, crane design, edge, and overall surface. Search for unusual characteristics, striking problems, damaged areas, or anything that looks different from a normal example. But remember, damage is not automatically an error. A scratch made after the coin left the mint is usually just damage. A genuine mint error is something that occurred during production, and collectors can treat confirmed errors very differently from ordinary wear. The next step is perhaps the most important one: learning how to separate a normal 2007 5 cents from an example that deserves closer attention. And this is where many people make a mistake. They see a small coin, notice a strange mark, and immediately assume they have discovered a fortune. But experienced collectors slow down. They compare the coin, study the details, check the condition, and only then consider its potential value. So, if you have a 2007 5 cents coin, don't throw it away and don't polish it. Keep watching, because in the second part we will look at the details that can make one example more interesting than another, how collectors judge condition, what kind of 2007 5 cents deserves special attention, and finally, the $1,496 figure connected with today's video. Now let's get to the part every collector wants to know. What should you actually look for if you have a South African 5 cents from 2007? The first thing is condition. A coin that has spent years moving through thousands of hands will naturally collect scratches, small dents, discoloration, and surface wear. That is completely normal. But a coin that still has strong details, clean surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation can be much more appealing to collectors. The 2007 5 cents is made from copper-plated steel, weighs approximately 4.5 grams, and has a diameter of about 21 millimeters. The edge is plain, while the design shows the South African coat of arms on one side and the blue crane with the 5C denomination on the other. One fascinating detail is the lettering. This coin belongs to a series that represents South Africa's multilingual character, with the country's official languages incorporated across the coinage. For someone collecting South African history, that gives this little 5-cent piece a cultural importance that goes beyond its monetary denomination. Now, let's talk about rarity. The standard 2007 circulation issue had a mintage of approximately 653,408,000 pieces. That is a huge number, so you should not assume that every 2007 5 cents is rare or automatically valuable. Current catalog information places ordinary examples at modest values, with Namista's indicative figures ranging from about 17 cents in lower circulated grades to around 49 cents for an uncirculated example. NGC's guide also shows values generally remaining low for standard examples, while listing a higher figure for a proof example. But here is the detail that can make your search much more interesting. There were only about 1,280 proof examples recorded for 2007. A proof coin is produced with special preparation and handling, and it is intended primarily for collectors rather than ordinary circulation. NGC currently lists a guide value of about $5 for a 2007 proof 5 cents, although actual prices can vary depending on authenticity, condition, certification, and buyer demand. So if you find a 2007 5 cents that looks unusually sharp, reflective, and carefully struck, do not immediately assume it is an ordinary circulation coin. Compare it closely with a normal example. Another important warning: never clean the coin. This is especially important for older coins because people sometimes believe polishing will make them look newer and therefore more valuable. In reality, cleaning can leave unnatural scratches and surface damage that collectors may dislike. If your coin appears interesting, preserve it exactly as you found it. And what about errors? This is where collectors become extremely careful. A genuine mint error can sometimes make a common coin far more desirable, but not every unusual-looking mark is an error. A scratch, dent, stain, or damage caused by another coin is not automatically a minting mistake. If you think your 2007 5 cents has an unusual production error, compare it with authenticated examples before making any major claim about its value. The best approach is simple: protect the coin, photograph both sides clearly, inspect it under magnification, and compare every detail with the standard 2007 example. And now we reach the number many viewers have been waiting for. You may have seen claims online suggesting that a South African 5 cents from 2007 can be worth an astonishing $1,496. But we need to be very careful here. That figure should not be treated as the normal market value of an ordinary 2007 5 cents. Established catalog information indicates that typical examples are worth only modest amounts, while special proof or exceptional examples can command more. So why mention $1,496? Because today's video is about recognizing the possibility that a particular coin could have unusual characteristics, not telling you that every 2007 5 cents is worth $1,496. A dramatic value claim should always be backed by an actual sale, certification, rarity, and condition. For collectors, the real lesson is much more valuable than a single dollar figure. That tiny 5-cent coin can teach you how to examine dates, designs, minting quality, condition, and rarity. It can remind you that the coins we handle every day can eventually become pieces of history. So before you spend that old 2007 5 cents, take a closer look. Check the date. Study the crane. Examine the national arms. Inspect the surface. Look for unusual production characteristics, and most importantly, protect the coin from cleaning or unnecessary handling. Because sometimes the most interesting discovery isn't the coin that looks expensive at first glance. It's the ordinary-looking coin that makes you stop, look twice, and ask one simple question: what exactly am I holding? And that is the real excitement of coin collecting. One small coin can open the door to history, craftsmanship, rarity, and a story that may have been sitting quietly in your collection for years. In their original face value, you definitely do not want to miss today's story. Today, we are taking a closer look at the South African 1 cent from 1961, a coin connected to one of the most important turning points in South African monetary history. At first glance, this little coin may seem ordinary. It is small, simple, and easy to overlook. But when you examine its history, design, varieties, condition, and collector demand, the story becomes much more interesting. The 1961 1 cent belongs to South Africa's first decimal coinage series. This was the year South Africa moved into the rand and cent currency system, making this coin an important piece for collectors interested in the beginning of the decimal era. The standard 1961 issue is listed as a brass coin weighing about 9.42 grams and measuring roughly 31 millimeters across. That larger size can make the coin particularly interesting when compared with many later South African 1 cent pieces. It carries the portrait of Jan van Riebeeck on the obverse, while the reverse features a covered wagon, giving the coin a strong historical character. The wording includes both English and Afrikaans, reflecting the bilingual presentation used on the coinage of the period. But here is where things become exciting for collectors. Not every 1961 1 cent is necessarily worth the same amount. A coin's value can change dramatically depending on its exact variety, condition, surface quality, strike, and whether it has an unusual feature that separates it from the normal issue. According to current catalog information, around 52,266,000 examples of the standard 1961 issue are recorded, so the ordinary circulated version is not automatically a rare fortune. Current indicative values listed for the regular coin range from roughly 55 cents in lower circulated grades to around $2 in uncirculated condition. These are only guide values, not guaranteed selling prices. However, there is another reason serious collectors pay attention to this particular year. A documented 1961 variety is associated with the wagon design having full ground cover underneath it. This variety is identified as Hernar 5, and the catalog notes that the original mintage may have been around 80 pieces, with only 12 known according to Hearn's estimate. That is an enormous difference compared with the millions of regular examples. And this is exactly why you should never judge an old coin simply by looking at its denomination. A coin marked 1 cent may have started with almost no purchasing power, but its historical importance, variety, and condition can make it fascinating to collectors decades later. There is also a documented 1961 proof issue, with 7,530 pieces listed. The catalog gives an indicative value of about $3.10 for the proof example, although actual market prices can vary considerably depending on grade and authenticity. The biggest lesson here is that condition matters. A heavily worn coin with scratches, stains, corrosion, or damaged surfaces will generally attract less attention than a sharply struck example with strong details and attractive surfaces. Collectors carefully examine the portrait, lettering, wagon design, rims, and overall preservation before deciding how desirable a coin may be. So if you have a 1961 1 cent sitting inside an old collection, family box, drawer, or inherited coin album, do not clean it immediately. Cleaning can damage the original surface and potentially reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges and examine both sides under good lighting. And there is still one major question left. Could a remarkable example of this seemingly tiny South African coin be worth far more than ordinary catalog values suggest? The answer becomes especially interesting when we look at exceptional certified examples and the rare variety connected with the wagon design, Now we come to the part of the story that could make a collector look at a 1961 South African 1-center very differently. The normal 1961 issue had a recorded mintage of more than 52 million pieces, so simply finding a coin dated 1961 does not mean you have a rare treasure. But hidden among the ordinary examples is a spectacular variety known for its full ground cover beneath the wagon on the reverse. Numista identifies this as Hearn R5 and notes Hearn's estimate of roughly 80 originally produced, with only a small number known. And the auction record shows just how dramatically rarity can change the value. In April 2026, Heritage Auction sold a 1961 South African Republic Center graded MS66 by NGC, identified as the full ground cover variety, for $6,710. The auction description states a mintage of 80 and 20 known examples. That is a completely different level from the ordinary 1961 cent. So when someone asks, "How much is my 1961 1-cent worth?" the honest answer is that there is no single value. A normal circulated example can be worth only a small amount, while an exceptional rare variety in high grade can bring thousands. There is even evidence of strong collector interest in South Africa itself. A full ground cover 1961 1-cent was recorded as selling for R40,500 in a Bob's Shop auction in January 2023. This demonstrates that collectors have been willing to pay substantial amounts for the rare variety, although individual auction results should never be treated as a guaranteed price for every coin. So what should you look for? Start with the reverse. Find the covered wagon and carefully inspect the area underneath it. The rare full ground cover variety is distinguished by the amount of ground detail beneath the wagon. This is not something you should identify from a quick glance alone. If you believe your coin may have the variety, compare it with trusted references or have it examined by a knowledgeable specialist. Next, examine the condition. Look for sharp details, clean lettering, a strong rim, and minimal damage. Scratches, corrosion, heavy cleaning, dents, or excessive wear can significantly affect desirability. An untouched original surface is generally much more attractive to serious collectors than a coin that has been polished. And please remember one important rule: do not clean the coin. That old-looking surface may actually be part of its collectible appeal. Cleaning can leave permanent marks and may reduce the coin's desirability. Hold it carefully by the edges and keep it protected from unnecessary handling. The ordinary 1961 coin also has its own historical importance. It belongs to South Africa's first decimal series and was struck in brass, with a weight of approximately 9.42 grams and a diameter of about 31 millimeters. Its obverse features Jan van Riebeek, while the reverse displays the covered wagon. For a normal example, catalog indications are much more modest. Numista currently lists approximately 55 cents for lower circulated grades and about $2 for an uncirculated standard example, while a 1961 proof is listed around $3.10. These are indicative figures, not guaranteed selling prices. But now comes the value we promised you. If your 1961 South African 1-center is the exceptionally rare full ground cover variety, and especially if it is preserved in outstanding condition and authenticated by a respected grading service, its value can reach into the thousands of dollars. A documented 2026 auction result reached $6,710 for an MS66 example. For this video, the eye-catching value figure is $1,288, but remember that this should be presented as a potential or featured value rather than a guaranteed price for every 1961 1-cent. The actual value depends on variety, authenticity, condition, certification, and what collectors are willing to pay at the time. So before you dismiss that tiny old coin as worthless, take another look. Check the date. Check the wagon. Check the ground beneath it. And most importantly, check the condition. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not hidden in huge collections or expensive display cases. Sometimes they are sitting quietly inside an old coin box, waiting for someone to recognize the detail that everyone else overlooked. If you enjoyed this discovery, Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because there are many more old South African coins with fascinating stories, unusual varieties, and surprising collector values waiting to be uncovered.